I'll tell you why this story is of so much concern. It's because it's very difficult. Now, it's much tougher for the ISI to try and send Kasab on Kuber across the Arabian Sea from Karachi to New Delhi, from Karachi to Bombay. That's much tougher than it is for them to be able to get hold of these disgruntled youth in the jungles, give them weapons and bring them to our cities. So that brings me to the second center stage face-off question tonight. How can India combat this potent cocktail of terror? Mr. Raman, I want to come to you first. This is a natural alliance between the enemies of India. What should India now do? Harinder Baveja is saying the MHA has been studying this, the IB is aware of it, there's a trend that's developing. Mr. Bidari, the police commissioner, says exactly the same thing. What can India do to combat and to nullify this cocktail of terror?
No, one thing is we have to step up our activities, probably in the rural areas. We have got a fairly good setup in the urban areas. The restructuring of the intelligence agencies to be able to counter ISI-sponsored Jihadi terrorism, which was undertaken by Mr. P. Chidambaram after he took over as the Home Minister, focused on revamping the intelligence machinery mainly in the urban areas. Now we have to think in terms of the rural areas. If ISI is going to operate in the rural areas, either through Dawood Ibrahim's gang and the Naxalites and others whom he may be able to put in the rural areas, it requires a different kind of intelligence setup for being able to collect intelligence from the rural areas about this nexus, and different type of modus operandi for being able to counter them on the ground. It won't be just a series of clashes with the security forces and the Naxalites, ambushes and all which you are seeing. We'll find more use of, for example, improvised explosive devices. We'll find more instances of attacks on soft targets. Till now, the Naxalites have been focusing on attacking mainly the security forces. Now, the ISA will instigate them to start attacking the soft targets, not only in the rural areas, but also in smaller towns. Till now, the activities jihadis are confined to bigger towns, the metro cities, as I said earlier. Now, they will ask them to start attacking soft targets. So, if we are going to face soft targets in many of the smaller towns and rural areas and all, that requires a much larger capability for intervention by our security forces, by agencies like the NSG, National Security Guards and all. Now they have got a capability for intervention in the metro cities. Okay. They don't have a capability for intervention in the small towns. So that's very necessary now.
That's an important point you're making, that our intelligence network on the ground in the small towns and villages is very weak. Mr. Bidri, do you believe it's within the realm of possibility that, say, a dozen, 2 dozen, maybe 100 Naxals, they've attacked places in large numbers, but so far it's been happening in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand. It could happen in Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, anywhere. The ISI funds them, they all come together, they're all Indians, they've got all the voter cards, the ID cards, no one can stop them. They come into the big cities and they stage big attacks, which could really make Mumbai seem rather pale in comparison. Is that really what you're concerned about, and what can be done to ensure that such a possibility never comes true?
One thing I would like to make it clear, in a society where there will be no exploitation, where there will be no discrimination, where there will be no oppression, terrorism cannot grow. You can see in well-administered states where governments are responsive to the aspirations of the people, this kind of Naxalism will never take root. So you take, for example, the Karnataka state only. I don't say that our Karnataka society and Karnataka government do not have any deficiencies. For the last 30-40 years, in spite of all the deficiencies and defects, our state has been administered fairly well. Therefore, Naxalism can never take root in a state like Karnataka.
Okay.
One thing is there, we have to deal with this issue in 2 ways. Number one, we have to draw out the sane Naxalites and bring them to the mainstream, and such people who are keen and determined to wage a military struggle against our constitution, against our union, they have to be dealt with sternly according to law. If we can do that, I think our country will be safe.
Well,
nobody can be